Did you know that Ryan lost his father in 2015?
I'm sorry, and living with Ryan must have been incredibly hard for him.
Bro, I don't feel very comfortable asking this question.
Nope, I got it. I'll get it. Here, I can do that. Here, you're not gonna read it. I will then.
Marvel Studios has reportedly filed a lawsuit against Ryan Reynolds. What started as whispers of behind-the-scenes tensions has escalated into a full-blown legal battle, putting the future of Deadpool and Reynolds' role in the MCU into question. Few stories in Hollywood send shockwaves quite like a legal battle between a studio and one of its biggest stars. The revelation that Marvel Studios has taken legal action against Ryan Reynolds isn't just another industry dispute. It's an unprecedented move that could alter the trajectory of one of its most successful franchises. For years, Reynolds has been synonymous with Deadpool. The wisecracking, fourth-wall-breaking anti-hero became an instant fan favorite, revitalizing R-rated superhero films and proving that an unconventional comic book character could thrive in a market dominated by family-friendly Marvel blockbusters. His portrayal blurred the lines between actor and character, as Reynolds infused Deadpool with his own brand of humor, wit, and relentless sarcasm. His deep involvement in the franchise extended beyond acting. He played a significant role in shaping the creative vision, marketing campaigns, and even the film's integration into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which is exactly why the news of a lawsuit is so shocking. Unlike past disputes where actors and studios have parted ways over financial disagreements or creative differences, this lawsuit suggests something far more serious. Marvel, a studio known for keeping its conflicts out of the public eye, has now been forced to take a legal road. This is not about a simple contract negotiation or a disagreement over a storyline. It's about something big enough to warrant a public official lawsuit. For months, rumors swirled about tension behind the scenes, but many dismissed them as baseless industry gossip. Reynolds, after all, has built a reputation as one of the most likable, marketable stars in Hollywood. His social media antics, self-deprecating humor, and high-profile business ventures, from Aviation Gin to Mint Mobile, have only cemented his status as a fan favorite. But this lawsuit suggests that something far more calculated may have been happening behind the curtain. What exactly triggered Marvel's drastic move? What could possibly make the studio risk alienating millions of Deadpool fans? While details remain sealed, speculation is running wild. Was there a breach of contract? Did Reynolds overstep his role as a producer? Or is this part of a much larger, more complex power struggle within the Marvel machine? Regardless of the reasons, one thing is clear. This is not just another celebrity scandal. This lawsuit could have lasting repercussions for both Reynolds and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If it leads to a fallout, Marvel could be forced to recast Deadpool or shelve future projects involving the character, disappointing legions of fans. If Reynolds successfully defends himself, it could expose internal conflicts within Marvel and shift the power dynamics between actors and studios. At this moment, there are more questions than answers, but one thing is certain. This legal battle is about more than just one actor. It's about the future of one of the most beloved characters in modern superhero cinema and the delicate balance of power between Hollywood's biggest stars and the studios that rely on them. At the heart of the controversy is not just Ryan Reynolds' iconic portrayal of Deadpool, but also growing concerns about Blake Lively's involvement behind the scenes. Once celebrated as a Hollywood power couple, recent reports suggest that Blake played a role in manipulating press narratives surrounding a film she was working on with director Justin Baldoni. Initially, it seemed like just another industry dispute, but leaked messages suggested something bigger was at play, allegedly involving Reynolds himself. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have long been viewed as one of Hollywood's most enviable couples. They have cultivated a public image that perfectly balances glamour, humor, and authenticity, trading playful jabs online, making red carpet appearances that exude effortless charm, and supporting each other's careers in ways that seem genuine. For years, they appeared untouchable, their relationship the perfect blend of movie star prestige and down-to-earth relatability. But recent reports suggest that their behind-the-scenes influence might extend beyond just their personal brand and into more controversial territory. The controversy traces back to a project involving Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, a filmmaker and actor known for his work in emotionally driven dramas. Initially, the pairing seemed like an exciting collaboration. Baldoni, coming off of acclaimed projects, had built a reputation for directing heartfelt narratives with a strong sense of social consciousness. Lively, known for seamlessly transitioning between high-gloss Hollywood films and more character-driven projects, seemed like an ideal fit for the adaptation he was working on. Early media coverage painted a rosy picture of the project's development. Press photos showcased on-set camaraderie, and both Lively and Baldoni were publicly enthusiastic about their partnership. However, as production progressed, industry insiders began whispering about friction behind the scenes. Lively, accustomed to having creative influence on her projects, reportedly clashed with Baldoni over the direction of the film. Given that Baldoni was not only directing but also co-writing and starring in the project, some sources suggested that Lively felt creatively stifled, concerned that her voice was being diminished in the process. At first, these tensions seemed like typical Hollywood growing pains. Actors and directors disagree all the time. It's part of the creative process. But then, something shifted. Instead of merely voicing her concerns privately, reports suggest that Lively may have taken steps to influence the public narrative surrounding the project. Rumors swirled that negative press about Baldoni was being strategically placed in industry publications. Anonymous sources began casting him as overbearing, as someone who controlled too much of the creative process and didn't allow room for collaboration. Initially, many sympathized with Lively. Hollywood has a long history of male directors overshadowing female leads, and her concerns seemed valid. But then, the leaks took a turn when private text messages allegedly connected Lively herself to the negative press. Screenshots reportedly showed that she was not just reacting to bad experiences on set, but actively working behind the scenes to shape how the public perceived Baldoni and the production. More surprisingly, her texts hinted at leveraging outside influence, specifically her husband's powerful connections in the industry, to ensure that the film's marketing and press coverage aligned with her interests. This revelation changed everything. What had once seemed like a typical behind-the-scenes creative clash now looked like a carefully orchestrated power play. The involvement of Ryan Reynolds, even indirectly, sent shockwaves through the industry. If the reports were true, it suggested that one of Hollywood's most beloved actors was participating in a form of behind-the-scenes industry manipulation, using his influence to shape narratives, control press cycles, and potentially strong-arm studios and filmmakers into making concessions. This revelation also placed Marvel Studios in an incredibly precarious position. Reynolds wasn't just any actor. He was the face of Deadpool, a franchise that had reinvigorated Marvel's R-rated potential and brought in billions of dollars. If he was truly leveraging his influence to interfere in outside projects, what did that mean for his dealings within Marvel? Was he exerting similar pressure in negotiations for Deadpool's future? Had he crossed ethical lines in his business dealings? As the story continued to unfold, what started as a seemingly minor dispute on a film set spiraled into a much larger controversy, one that didn't just threaten Reynolds and Lively's public image, but also placed Marvel Studios in an unthinkable position. With their most irreverent, bankable star suddenly entangled in allegations of industry manipulation, the studio was left to decide. Would they stand by him and hope the controversy blew over, or would they take drastic action to protect their brand? The answer would come soon enough, and it would shock everyone. According to insiders, Blake felt overshadowed by Baldoni's influence on the project and, as tensions grew, accused him of spreading negative press about her. But when text messages surfaced pointing to her as the one orchestrating media spin, the tide turned. Even more shocking were suggestions that she used her connection to Ryan and his industry clout to push for changes, leveraging his massive influence at Marvel. This raised serious red flags. Was Reynolds using his power in the industry to pressure executives and manipulate narratives? Blake Lively's professional reputation had long been characterized by her ability to navigate Hollywood with intelligence, charm, and an impeccable sense of timing. She had seamlessly transitioned from her breakout role on Gossip Girl to high-profile film roles, proving her ability to command both commercial and critical attention. But Hollywood is an industry built on relationships, and when those relationships are perceived as being used to manipulate outcomes, the consequences can be severe. What began as a subtle conflict between Lively and Baldoni, an issue of creative differences, quickly spiraled into a full-scale industry scandal. Initially, Lively's frustrations with Baldoni's role as director, writer, and lead actor seemed understandable. In an industry where actresses have historically been sidelined in creative decisions, her desire for more influence on the project was hardly unreasonable. However, as tensions escalated, she allegedly began suggesting that Baldoni was using his position to limit her role, not just on set, but in how the film was being promoted and received in the press. Lively reportedly believed that Baldoni was engineering a narrative that painted her as difficult and demanding, an all-too-common label used against powerful women in Hollywood. If this were true, it would have been a serious concern, as reputations in Hollywood are built as much on perception as they are on talent. However, the situation took a dramatic turn when a series of leaked messages suggested that the reverse was happening, that it was actually Lively who was orchestrating a media strategy to undermine Baldoni. This revelation was a game-changer. The texts, allegedly sent from Lively to members of her team, outlined specific talking points that should be emphasized in the press, including narratives about how Baldoni's creative control was stifling her voice. Even more troubling, the messages implied that she was tapping into her extensive industry network to ensure that these talking points gained traction. Among those resources, her husband, Ryan Reynolds. This is where the controversy expanded beyond a single film set and became a much larger industry problem. If Lively had simply been engaged in a personal dispute with Baldoni, it would have remained an unfortunate but not uncommon clash of egos and creative ambitions. But if she was indeed leveraging Reynolds' influence at Marvel to pressure industry insiders, it raised questions about just how much power the Hollywood elite wield behind closed doors. Ryan Reynolds isn't just a high-profile actor, he's a brand in himself. His name is attached to multi-million-dollar deals, high-profile business ventures, and most crucially, the Deadpool franchise, which has been a cornerstone of Marvel's expansion into R-rated storytelling. If Reynolds was using that influence to assist his wife in a professional dispute, it might have crossed an ethical line, one that studios, particularly Marvel, could not ignore. The fact that Marvel Studios is reportedly involved in the fallout suggests that this isn't just about internal Hollywood politics. The studio has a vested interest in ensuring that its biggest stars operate within professional boundaries, particularly when their reputations are so closely tied to billion-dollar franchises. If Reynolds was exerting pressure on industry professionals in ways that violated contractual agreements or ethical standards, it would be a major liability for Marvel. At this point, the controversy was no longer just about a creative dispute. It had become a potential industry-wide reckoning. If Reynolds and Lively were truly involved in media manipulation and power plays, it would force Hollywood to confront uncomfortable truths about how influence is wielded behind the scenes. And if Marvel was willing to take legal action against one of its biggest stars, it signaled that no amount of celebrity power would protect someone from consequences when corporate interests were on the line. For Marvel, this was more than just a PR nightmare. As a key producer and the face of Deadpool, Reynolds was integral to the franchise. But if he was involved in behind-the-scenes power plays, it could pose a serious risk to Marvel's brand integrity. The studio is known for keeping its house in order, but when more evidence allegedly connected Reynolds and his team to strategic press maneuvers and veiled threats, the situation became too big to ignore. Marvel Studios has spent over a decade crafting one of the most powerful brands in entertainment. The Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't just a series of films. It's a billion-dollar interconnected empire built on meticulous storytelling, careful brand management, and a delicate balance of control over its talent. Unlike some other major franchises that have struggled with off-screen drama, Marvel has prided itself on keeping internal conflicts out of the public eye. That's why this situation with Ryan Reynolds is so explosive. Marvel doesn't engage in public disputes with its stars unless it has to. The fact that the studio is reportedly taking legal action suggests that whatever is happening behind the scenes isn't just an issue of creative differences or minor contract disputes. This is something far more serious, something that Marvel executives felt could not be contained through private negotiations. At the core of the controversy is Reynolds' dual role as both an actor and a producer. He wasn't just playing Deadpool, he had significant creative influence over the character's direction. When Disney officially integrated Deadpool into the MCU, they didn't just bring in a successful R-rated franchise. They brought in an actor whose real-world personality had become almost inseparable from the character. Reynolds wasn't just a performer, he was a brand ambassador for Deadpool, shaping how the films were marketed, how they were presented to audiences, and even how they fit into the broader Marvel universe. This level of influence meant that Reynolds had an unusual amount of power compared to other Marvel actors. He wasn't just taking direction from studio executives, he was involved in making those decisions himself. If the allegations are true, and Reynolds was using that power to manipulate media narratives, pressure industry figures, or influence decision-making at other studios, it could represent a serious conflict of interest. From Marvel's perspective, the problem isn't just about one actor's behavior. It's about protecting the integrity of the Deadpool brand, and by extension, the entire MCU. The studio has always been careful to ensure that its leading actors project a certain level of professionalism and positivity. Even when behind-the-scenes tensions have arisen in the past, such as with Edward Norton's exit from the role of Hulk or Terrence Howard's fallout over Iron Man, Marvel has handled those disputes quietly, without letting them escalate into full-blown scandals. But this situation with Reynolds seems different. The reports suggest that Marvel's concern isn't just about his behavior, it's about a pattern of influence that could undermine the studio's authority. If Reynolds was leveraging his personal brand, his massive fan base, and his behind-the-scenes connections to pressure executives or shape industry narratives, it could set a dangerous precedent. Studios rely on maintaining control over their franchises, and they cannot afford to have their biggest stars operating as independent power players who can strong-arm them into making creative or business decisions. Even more troubling for Marvel is the potential fallout from the lawsuit. If the legal battle escalates, it could force the studio to publicly disclose details about its internal decision-making processes, something it has always been extremely protective of. It could also reveal just how much influence Reynolds has had over the Deadpool franchise, and whether his actions have created tensions within Marvel's executive structure. For fans, the situation is deeply unsettling. Reynolds has long been one of the most beloved figures in modern superhero cinema, known for his quick wit, self-deprecating humor, and ability to connect with audiences in a way that few other actors can. But if Marvel is willing to take this fight public, it suggests that the studio believes there is something serious at stake, something worth risking its relationship with one of its most bankable stars. As the legal proceedings unfold, one question looms over everything. Will Marvel attempt to salvage its partnership with Reynolds, or has the damage already been done? If the studio believes he has become too much of a liability, they may have no choice but to cut ties, potentially recasting Deadpool or shelving future projects altogether. It's an unthinkable scenario for fans, but at this point, nothing is off the table. In an industry built on carefully managed relationships, SUES, and behind-the-scenes negotiations, Marvel's decision to take legal action signals that this is more than just a contractual dispute. It's a battle for control. And in that battle, not even Deadpool may be untouchable. The industry and the fans were left wondering just how deep did this go? And if the allegations were true, how much influence had Reynolds and Lively quietly exerted over other projects, studios, and media narratives before this scandal finally pulled back the curtain? Marvel reportedly held emergency meetings to weigh their options, try to quietly renegotiate, let the controversy fade, or take decisive action. They chose the boldest option: legal action. The lawsuit cites breach of contract and reputational harm, signaling just how seriously the studio is taking this. Fans, stunned by the news, are divided. Some believe Reynolds is being scapegoated, while others wonder if this scandal will permanently damage his standing. Reynolds, known for his quick wit and online presence, has remained unusually silent. No jokes, no quips, just radio silence. Meanwhile, Blake's reputation has also taken a hit, especially after her lawyer abruptly withdrew from representing her, casting further doubt on her claims. As the legal battle unfolds, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Reynolds be able to recover from this, or has Marvel already decided that Deadpool's future won't include him? Will the lawsuit uncover more industry secrets, or will it quietly settle before more damage is done? One thing is certain, this controversy is bigger than any Marvel plot twist, and Hollywood is watching closely.